All right, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Geeked Out. Today this week in honor of the passing of legendary director William Friedkin, we decided to watch a movie from our childhood that we both, I think, enjoyed.
The Hunted.
Yeah, no, didn't do that. That wasn't from childhood, but no, we did 1994's Blue Chips, starring Nick Nolte, Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, and several others.
Yeah, I did not look at the cast list.
I looked at a few of it, but
I just recognize people from different things.
Well, this movie it's got a 6.3 out of 10 rating on IMDb, and I don't know how, but it's got a 37% on Rotten Tomatoes.
My God.
I find that to be very low, because
that's super low.
I don't know about you, but myself personally, I love this movie. I don't think it's a perfect movie. I don't think that it's some incredible thing. I think it's incredibly entertaining, and it's. I mean, I've never played college sports of any kind, especially in the States and the NCAA. But I think that it shows what seems to be a very realistic portrayal of recruitment of college players and some of the scandals that have gone on in the past and what they have to deal with and how they kind of skirt those rules and things like that.
Yeah, I have not seen this movie since I was a kid. And when I was a kid, I wasn't really paying attention. I was just a huge fan of, like Shaq and Penny Hardaway at the time. So them being in this movie was enough for me to watch it. But like I said, I was not paying attention. Now seeing it as an adult, I don't really agree with the Rotten Tomato score. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Yes, there are flaws. This movie could have been a lot better, but for what it is, I really, really enjoyed it. Not only, like, this whole movie has a sense of just being super authentic. Something that the director has done in this movie has definitely one of the most realistic basketball, at least when you're watching the basketball. There's very few scenes of the basketball, but when you see it, it's very authentic, and you can tell.
Well, I think the reason, you're totally right, and I think the reason of that is where you see a lot of sports movies, and they cast actors and they try to teach them how to play sports.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie, they got athletes and then just kind of dealt with the fact that they might not be the greatest actors, but it made that action on the court look real.
Yeah, exactly. Usually when you have an actor trying to be a basketball player, at least when they're playing basketball, there's a lot of cuts and edits to make the actor seem like a legit basketball player.
Oh yeah, there's so many.
The fact that they use legit basketball players, and I heard that a lot of the players that you see are like college players and whatnot.
Yeah, a lot of the extras. I think they're recruited players.
That's why it had that feeling of being real.
Yeah,
just for that reason.
Absolutely, and you like you say, you can tell because you watch movies, and I watch a lot of sports movies, and I find that sometimes one of the ones that is easiest to tell are baseball movies, and it, like you say, those quick cuts. You see a guy at the plate, they swing a bat, and the ball is a lazy pop. You can tell by the angle it's a lazy pop up, and they show it as a home run into the opposite direction. It doesn't make any sense, but because you've got the real legitimate players, and I mean, you think about it, when this movie came out, Shaq had just finished his rookie season with the Magic. And like I said to you before we had started recording, he went, after filming this movie, him and Penny Hardaway developed the friendship, they developed the chemistry on the court. He thought he was so good and such a great player that he went and lobbied to the Magic for them to take Penny Hardaway. And what they ended up doing is that year in the draft, they traded their first pick, Chris Webber, to the Golden State Warriors, who took Penny Hardaway at 3, and they put them together. And because of that, I forget how many, I think it was just a year or two later, the Magic, I believe they were in the NBA Finals.
That's crazy.
or at least the conference finals. Like,
yeah.
And it became because of this, which I think is a really cool a really cool story. And I mean, to me, out of everybody who's in this movie, I think Nick Nolte does a great job. He's an asshole coach. If I played this game, I would never want to play for a coach like that. But
Yeah.
he does a great job. But to me, the guy that I can't take my eyes off this entire movie is Shaq. He is just
Yeah, for when he's on screen, he's just oozing charisma for sure, and your eyes can't stop looking at him when he's on screen.
I mean, it does help that as a guy who grew up in the 90s and watching
Of course.
those Magic teams, and when he went to the Lakers with Kobe, and I'm a huge fan of Shaquille O'Neal.
Bruh, those, what was it, Mr. Big commercials? That made me want to go get a Mr. Big commercial.
Yeah.
That's all the impact Shaq had over the 90s, bro.
I mean, Michael Jackson was the face, but not Michael Jackson.
Michael Jordan?
Michael Jordan
There's
was
a lot of Michaels in the 90s that dominated.
Michael Jordan
one
was
of
the
them.
face of basketball in the 90s, but I think that the guy that everybody thought they could be would be a guy like Shaq, just because he was. I get that not everybody's 7'4" or 7'2", whatever he is, but
Yeah, he's 7'1", I believe.
he just seemed like that, something that everybody could attain to. He did everything he did with strength and speed, and for a guy that size,
Yeah.
it still to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense how he was able to do what he did. He was just such a dominating force for his entire career, and you see it in this movie, especially in that pickup scene when they're in Algiers in Louisiana, and
Yeah, something like that.
that whole scene, I just love that gritty with the chain on the net, and
Oh, yeah.
it's such a cool scene to watch, and
I
such a
love that
great
scene.
introduction for him in this movie.
My gripe is what lead right up to that scene. The fact that you have all these people, these kids, and Nick Nolte are just running towards this. It seems like Shaq is this mythical creature that that everyone in the entire town has to watch play. Which, I mean, sure, it's Shaq, of course. Look at him; he's Shaq at his athletic prime, in my opinion, at the time. Yeah, it just, I don't know. It just seemed a little. It just reminded me of scene of like King Kong or something.
But for me, the whole thing with that is, it's not even with the kids, it's before that. It's with him and the other guy in the movie. I think his character's name is Slick. And they literally get off a boat, and there's a piece of wood there, and it just has written in paint, Algiers, and it looks like they're arriving in some third world country, and then they're running through the jungle.
Yeah,
and
it does not seem like
it's
they're in
like,
America.
no, you're in Louisiana. Like, I get that they have swamps and things like that, but it's like you're not in some third world country.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you'd think you'd be able to get to a place like that, and it wouldn't look the way that it does. But it's kind of funny because as you watch it, I mean, the guy's running, and then and Nick Nolte's kind of behind him, like, I can't keep up with this, and it's kind of a funny juxtaposition of the way his character is. But I think it was a very weird choice by the director and the team that made this movie.
Yeah, I don't have major gripes with this movie. All I have is nitpicks, and that's just a personal nitpick I have towards this movie. You know what I mean? Another thing I like. Let's continue with the performances, since you mentioned Nick Nolte, which I think that's who you get for that type of character. I think that was perfect casting. It seems like they were going for a Bobby Knight like character, and the biggest character asshole actor at the time was Nick Nolte, so perfect casting.
Well, I'll say, sorry to cut you off, but they definitely were going for a Bobby Knight, because I was doing a little research on this. I believe it was the 92 season. Nick Nolte actually shadowed Bobby Knight for most of that season with Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing that's where he picked up a lot of these mannerisms, and you're right. I think he is supposed to be, whether it be based on him or a characterization or
and like the opening of the movie, like
the
definitely
basketball
shows
kicking
you
scene.
This guy is that archetype, that Bobby Knight, passionate but very emotional and expressive coach. Yeah, and I really think it sets the tone of the movie, that beginning, which I really liked and appreciated. Another thing that adds to the authenticity is they have, like, you could tell they have actually people that are like college announcers and college players, and I think the recruiters that Nick Nolte was talking to in the scenes where he was recruiting like Penny Hardaway, I didn't even do any research into it. I wouldn't doubt that those actors, they weren't even actors, they were just like real recruiters or coaches or something to do with college basketball, because they just seemed like real people.
Yeah. They didn't seem like they were playing characters, it just seemed like they were being themselves on screen.
Exactly. And like and that's spread throughout the movie. There was a lot of those type of moments where it just seemed like it was like improv, or the director just let them say whatever was felt natural to them, and that's a thing that I appreciate about this movie. Is it definitely has this layer of just authenticness that I very much appreciate.
Yeah, well, I mean, I right away, there was one of the extras that I recognized was if anybody listening is a basketball fan in the 90s, you probably know this name, but I believe it was the first game they were playing, I saw Rick Fox, if you remember.
Oh, I didn't know. I know Rick Fox. I didn't recognize
I just saw him. It was one scene, he's kind of coming down the court and pulls up for a jump shot, and I kind of went, oh yeah.
That's probably why I didn't recognize him.
I kind of looked and went, I think that's Rick Fox. Like, and I know, and it wouldn't surprise me because I know, or sorry, it doesn't surprise me because I know he's done other basketball movies.
Yeah.
So I think this kind of was just him kind of dipping his toe in as a little bit of an extra, and then I know he went on to do.
He's done a lot of small acting things.
Yeah,
so.
I know. Like I said, yeah, I know he did more in the future, but then you've got, like you say, talk about the performances. You mentioned it earlier, so I'll let you go off. Mr. Penny Hardaway is playing Butch McRae.
Yeah, say what you want about his basketball skills, professionally.
Phenomenal.
Apparently, if he had not got injured, he would have had quite a career.
Oh, I think so as well.
Just that skill did not translate to acting, unfortunately. He is so monotone in his line delivery and so robotic, and it seemed like he could barely remember his lines.
No, he's not at all comfortable on camera, and it's you can almost
no screen presence at all.
It's almost like he's just praying for that director to say cut, and like the scene's over and he doesn't have to do it anymore, and just get me back on the court and get a ball in my hands.
Definitely does not feel comfortable. Shaq, you could tell he's comfortable. He lets his personality, shine through his performance. Penny Hardaway, not so much. And yeah, it's a major nitpick that I have with this movie is his acting, especially when he has to at least have emotion in certain scenes. The fact that he displays nothing and you don't believe what he's even saying.
But I will say, I will argue against that and say, would you rather have, like we had said before with the authenticity, would you rather sacrifice that acting presence?
No, I wouldn't.
Because I mean, the thing is, if you look at the way these guys are portrayed, at least when they play on the court, Shaq is the focal point. So most of what they show is him, whereas the guys like the Ricky Rowe and the Butch McRae, and they're not focused on as much.
Yeah.
So I think you might have been able to maybe find. I mean, they could have had Rick Fox. Like,
yeah,
you could have had somebody who might have that presence more, but I don't know. It's obviously hard. I mean, this movie came out,
and that's
almost 30 years ago.
And that's detriment to what you're saying. It's more of a recruitment because they're not really looking at the players, and like all the side characters don't really get much shine. It's really all about at least one side character, Shaq, and then Nick Nolte, and basically that's it.
Yeah, see, I don't really view this movie, and I had said this before, I don't really view this movie as sports movie per se. Like, when you think of sports movies, you think of The Natural or Miracle or Remember the Titans, Any Given Sunday, stuff like that. Like Mike, no, I don't think of that. But
That's a sports movie to me.
But when you think of those movies, it usually has to do with the team or the one star player individually, and it all culminates at the end in the championship game or the big rival game that means something. Whereas
the ship.
Exactly. Whereas this movie, it just, I'm pretty sure the final game. I mean, we have the movie on in the background right now.
Isn't the final game like the first game of the season?
It is. I believe it's the first game of their regular season with those three.
And I wasn't
freshmen.
paying attention, but was that team like the former champions?
I don't think they were the former champions, but they were just like, they're kind of touted as like one of the powerhouses in the country type thing.
Okay.
But it doesn't. So that's why I don't view it as a prototypical sports movie, because this final game doesn't matter. This movie to me is more of an inside look into, I guess, the what can be the shadiness of college athletic recruiting.
Just the underbelly.
Which, I mean, it happens all the time. It seems like every year there's a different school that comes out and, they were giving these people money or these people this and this, and it just...
Yeah, it's a movie that even though it came out in the early 90s, the message
it
the
resonates.
practices are still being used today to recruit people. Like, they're still using those dirty tactics, money on the table, to recruit these athletes.
Oh yeah, and that's why they've over the past several years, they've really been pushing for college players to start getting paid or getting at least a little bit, because, and I'm for one, I'm totally behind that. I agree with that 100%, because these schools make millions of dollars because of what these kids do, and then you hear stories about them living in dorm rooms and they can barely afford to feed themselves because they've got classes, they've got practice, they've got games. They're not working jobs to get themselves money or anything like that. And you got universities selling football and basketball jerseys with their names on the back, and they get nothing for it. And I think that's almost criminal.
Now, with college games, do they pay? Unless you're a student, I think students is free. But if you're not a student, do you have to pay for those seats?
Oh, absolutely.
So where's that money? Oh, actually,
that money just goes
salaries and stuff like that, obviously, but
and that just goes right back to the university.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that at least in like at Michigan State, places like that around here, I just know that those season tickets you're paying a lot of money for that stuff. Mm-hmm. And all of that just goes to the school and the players, the guys who bust their asses every day at practice and the games and all this other stuff. They get nothing except a chance that if you finish your college career, I mean, in basketball they only usually do 1 year now if they're going to turn pro and go in the draft. I mean, you put your ass on the line, and if you get hurt, you blow your knee out, your career's over, you get nothing.
Yeah. I think it's part of the reason why they go to pro so quick.
It absolutely is.
It's like, look, I'm doing the same thing. I'm not getting paid anything. Let me just hop over here, do the same thing, and get paid millions of dollars.
Exactly. And unfortunately, there have been a lot of stories, especially in basketball, because they only usually do the 1 year. Football, they usually do at least a couple. But there have been a lot of instances of guys coming out and going to the pros, and they're not mentally ready. They're not developed enough for the difference between the college to the professional game, and it really hurts their careers. And some guys who everybody thought was going to be this massive superstar just ends up flaming out because he wasn't mature enough or ready to do that job where he should have stayed a few years in college. But that's a whole other topic. That's getting into the real stuff. That's getting away from the movie.
I want to talk more about Nick Nolte's performance, man. Like, you could tell he's a really good coach, and that he is struggling. He went years and years and years winning championships, conference finals, being in what he honestly thought was a clean program. And the fact that he's under so much pressure to win, that he's like, he finally decides, look, I'm okay. If you can't beat him, join him.
Well, I think the whole thing is...
And it tears him up inside.
I think the whole thing is it was a clean program. And that's how they kind of put it is...
Well, you discover that 2 years
the point shaving, yeah. But that was just...
under his nose, it kind of was. Sorry for cutting you off.
No, that's a singular incident that they bring up. But the recruitment in this, he's always run a clean program. But then there's that moment with JT Walsh, who plays Happy, the booster, he talks about, we've got all these football players, and my money has been laundered, and there's no trace of it, and yada. So he's basically just admitting, like, we buy all these players for football, and like, you should be doing the same thing for basketball. And he says to him, I run a clean program. That's not how I do things.
But it's also hinting at like other coaches from other basketball teams.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Also doing that.
And then the problem is, like you say, he feels that pressure because he says to his ex-wife in the one scene, he says, before these recruitments at the very beginning of the movie, he's going, I'm looking at my first ever losing season. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't think they ever really say how long he's been doing this.
I wasn't 8 years, but I think I'm off.
But they make it seem like he's been there for a long time, because if he's based on Bobby Knight, I mean, Bobby Knight was the coach at Indiana for 30 years. I believe he was 71 to 2000.
Good Lord.
He coached at Indiana. So if he's based on that and that type of tenure, he could have been there for 15, 20 years. I mean, the way the movie is set up, I don't really know. But and if that was his first losing season in that amount of time, the amount of pressure you would be under from your athletic director, the boosters, the university, I couldn't even imagine it.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. Nick Nolte he had a fantastic performance, and
you really believe that
he's a very authentic coach. He's got that fire, that
passion. You could tell he cares about his players. But he cares about basketball. Like, that's where he shines, is when he is coaching basketball.
Yeah.
And his performance, you totally buy into it, man. Another performance is that I appreciate, and I think did a really good job, was his ex-wife. I don't know her name or anything.
I believe it's Mary McDonnell.
But
Mary McDonnell.
She was an amazing actress in this movie, man. Like, I mean, you believe that they were a married couple, that they
have
got
that
divorced.
chemistry.
Like, you actually believe, the chemistry was so good.
But you know what? It's funny is it's not like a typical what you see in movies of divorce and this and that. They're still. It almost makes it seem like they're still in a relationship, but
they just seem like they ended terms respectfully, but they still have feelings for each other. But they know, at least she knows, because she seems like like the strong. She wears the pants in that relationship. She knows that they can't, and he respects that.
Well, it's even
there's such a respect towards in that relationship, which you don't really see in a lot of movies, especially with Nick Nolte. He's always divorced in movies, but it's always bad terms.
Or he's the alcoholic, abusive.
Yeah. So I appreciate this.
But even like after that first game at the beginning of the movie, he goes to her house and he's kind of discussing a little bit of the game with her and this and that, and he kind of even says to her, "Can I stay here tonight?" And she says no, and he says, "Well, why did we ever get divorced?" And she says, "Because you were impossible to live with." And it's like, it's not because I stopped loving you, or you cheated on me, or you beat me, or anything like that.
Or I fucking hate you now. Like,
it's because it's almost like they portray it as like you say, yeah, they still love each other, but she knows that if they would have stayed together, it would have made things
toxic.
Exactly, and they got out ahead of it. But you're right, she's a great actress.
Yeah.
I mean,
not just the chemistry with Nick Nolte, but the chemistry with Shaquille O'Neal was
when
also
she's tutoring
great.
him with that's
man,
really
like,
good.
That's what made me really like her interacting and her character in this movie, is because almost everyone she interacts with, she has chemistry with.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I don't know if it's just natural chemistry or just the fact that she's a really good actress in that role. I know, I'm not sure, but I really enjoyed it, man.
Well, it's funny. She had.
Honestly, I don't think I've seen her in
I guarantee you have.
I'm sure I've seen her in things, but nothing where it's like she should have been in more things.
So
based off this performance,
I'm right now on her IMDb, just kind of looking at her filmography, and just a few years before this, she was she starred alongside Kevin Costner in Dances with Wolves.
I don't think I've seen that movie.
It's long, slow. It's a good movie, but it's long and slow. And then just 2 years after this, she played the Mrs. Bill Pullman, the First Lady in Independence Day.
Oh yeah, she was. Her hairstyle different.
Yep.
She had that different hairstyle. Yeah, and she was all dirty and shit. She was all dirty.
Yeah,
I do remember. Okay, I know I've seen her before. Okay, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, and then I mean, there's a lot of I really like, again, going back to the authenticity. They get real basketball people. You got Rick Pitino, coaching. I believe it's. I don't even know what team he's coaching in the movie, but it's the team that they're playing at the very beginning. There's him, then there's, like you said, Nick Nolte seems to be portrayed as a caricature of Bobby Knight, and you've got Bobby Knight at the very end,
and you could tell that he is the Bobby Knight of this universe, because when he goes up against Bobby Knight and Bobby Knight loses, he is the calmest I've ever seen that man in my life losing a game. I was like, that's not really Bobby Knight.
No,
it's
not
because Nick Nolte is playing that character type.
Yeah,
but I did appreciate that the actual character Bobby Knight was in the movie.
Oh yeah, I like that too. But then even his athletic director at the university is Bob Cousy, legendary Boston Celtic player.
Ooh.
And it's funny. Even I looked up some more trivia about this, and the scene where you just see the two of them discussing the team and Bob Cousy shooting the free throws.
He couldn't stop.
I
thought this guy actually played basketball in his life. I'm like, he's missing.
He's a legend.
There's no cuts in that. That's like one
That's
shot.
just him doing it. It's a continuous shot.
A person dropping it.
And that's even Nick Nolte makes a comment. He says to him, "Don't you ever miss?" That was an ad lib line because he just kept going. And then even at the end of it, he makes one left-handed, like almost like an insult to injury. Like, yeah, I can do this. I did this. Yeah, I did this for years.
And even when Nick Nolte's response to that, it felt natural.
Yeah,
that is literally spread throughout the movie. There's scenes like that where it just like the director just let the actors just do what they do.
Yeah.
Or just, just off the top do what they felt natural, and it seems so fitting for this movie, man. And I just think this honestly is one of the most authentic portrayal of a sports movie, even though you don't think it's a sports movie. I think it's a sports movie plus. Like it can fit in several different categories, but I count it as, it's a sports movie, but a subgenre in like the coaching, recruiting.
Yeah, that makes sense because the focus isn't the team and the outcome of the season of the team and what they're going to do. It's how it affects the
Yeah.
people involved, whether they be
And Nick Nolte,
behind the scenes or the actual players or.
and Nick Nolte's passion for basketball is you believe that he is his most purest self when he is coaching basketball.
Well, and it's so funny that you say that because, as I said before, we've got the movie on in the background, and we started it considerably before we started recording. So right now it's
It's the end of the movie.
it's the end of the movie. I mean, spoiler alert. He at the end of the movie, he comes out in a press conference and basically admits to doing everything that they did and quits his job.
Which was a brilliant performance. Like that.
Oh yeah, that seems very. I mean, I don't know if this would actually happen. I don't know if a coach would come out.
It seemed a little rushed. Like for his character
He went
to do
one
that
game.
at the first game seems a little okay, whatever. Like
But now
not
he's-
really as realistic, but we get it. It's a movie. Let's rush the plot a little bit.
But the funny thing is, and the reason I don't think that it would actually, a coach would actually do this is because he would have now, those 3 players that they recruit and they give them the stuff, all 3 of them, their collegiate careers would be over. They would be considered ineligible because they were illegally recruited.
Yeah,
And
he would have
they-
destroyed.
Exactly, he would have just. I don't think any coach would have been willing to do that, especially after one game. If he would have done that, it would have been. He would have went to his athletic director behind the scenes and said, "You know what? I can't do this anymore. I can't live with what we did to get these kids, and I'm done. I can't do it." And
The
this and that."
ramifications would have been
Astronomical. But again, it's a
still
movie.
good
They
film.
need to end the film. They want a feel good moment for him to he did this but like you say, when he has that passion for coaching, at the end of the movie after that, they showed him he's in like a pickup game in the middle of the night apparently.
at night. All these kids, like, where are your parents?
There's like 50
They're like
kids
8.
that are 8 years old, but they're all playing pickup basketball and he pulls one kid aside and he's teaching him tips on his jump shot, and it's just even that he's not focused on what the outcome could be and whether this kid could end up growing up to be somebody. It's just he wants to help somebody improve their skills at playing the game of basketball, and that's what he loves and that's what he wants to do and wants to bring to society.
And that was the
thing.
point of that speech towards the end of the movie, is for you to see that it just happened so much sooner than it really would have.
Yeah.
If you were, if the movie was a television show, that would have been like the last episode toward, or even like the series finale.
Yeah.
Instead of like towards the beginning of the season, you know what I mean? It just seemed rushed, which is another nitpick of it.
I mean,
But
I'll be
get it.
honest. I would love for this movie.
It needed another 20-30 minutes.
Well, no, but now with all these streaming shows and
Or
Netflix and Prime, I would love for them to make this into whether it be
This
a
would have been a
mini
perfect
series
TV show.
or a TV
Yeah,
show, because
I
you
agree.
could because they talk about the point shaving incident. You could do a whole almost like flashback season on that. Then you could do like after he resigns, you could do another season or 2 on the ramifications of what penalties the university goes through, what the kids go through, what all
You could dedicate an episode to each of those 3 players, giving them their own backstory and building those characters up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it would have fleshed out a lot of these elements, and it would have made for a better product. But the fact that it was a movie that was, I think, under 2 hours.
Yes, I believe it. It
I
was.
think it was under 90. What was it? Not even an hour and a half.
No, it is. It's an hour and 48 minutes.
Okay. Under 2 hours. It seemed like, they could have fleshed out a lot more if given enough time, and it would have had a better. It would have made for a better product.
Yeah. So some of the other people in the movie, the third player that's recruited. I mean, you have Shaq, Penny Hardaway, and then you have Matt Nover, who I didn't even really know this, but I looked it up. Matt Nover actually did. He played college ball at Indiana.
I figured he did something. I was like, you're too goddamn tall, and his jump shot.
His jump shot is beautiful.
I was like, that's too natural.
But he did. He played ball. He played pro ball in Europe. As far as I know, I don't believe he ever made the NBA, and if he did, it was like the NBA Europe teams. But what did you think of him? I thought he was very good at ball. I thought he had the same acting issues that Penny Hardaway did.
Not as bad as Penny, but still pretty bad. That's not saying much. I think he was supposed to be the
he's the Larry
easily
Bird.
Corruptible type character.
But he's also the Larry Bird. The
Larry Bird, the country bumpkin.
Well, I mean, they even make him
homebred American.
They make him from the same town.
Yeah. Well, I think honestly, the director has a personal love for Boston Celtics because there's a lot of
Celtics in this.
Yeah, so I think that's just the own director's bias coming out.
But I always find it amusing where he goes to French Lick, Indiana, which famously is where Larry Bird is from, because that's where he's going to meet this Ricky Rowe kid, and he pulls up and on just a random playground, there's Larry Bird, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, just shooting free throws.
Larry Legend.
Just by himself, nobody around him, just shooting free throws. It's like, give me a break. I don't think that's that.
I guess. I mean, it's such a small town. I guess they probably just leave him alone because he's been there. He's had his career.
I get it, but to me, I don't know if I buy that. But I get that it was another nod to like, oh, look at this guy who we got in the movie, and they use that as like, oh yeah, I'll introduce you to Ricky's family and this and that, and yeah, it's. But then you get the scene where, I mean, you and I are both fans of the show Supernatural. I didn't realize it was him right away. You did.
Oh yeah. But
the guy who plays Ricky's dad plays Bobby in Supernatural.
Bobby.
I'm trying to remember his name right now.
It's Bobby.
I think his name is.
I don't care what it is. It's Bobby.
Well, no, that's his character.
It's Bobby. We talking about certain actors. I don't refer to them as a real name, even though I know their real names. I refer to them as the character that I recognize them from.
No, that makes sense. God
damn it, it's Bobby. He is Bobby.
I
feel like he would appreciate it in real life. Or he might tase me.
I did not like the racial overtone of his character. Oh my god! I didn't know. I watched this movie. This movie came out in '94. I probably saw it when I was 12, 13. So I didn't catch this at all. But I will say I did like when Nick Nolte goes to the three different recruiting, the three different kids. He changes.
Oh, he straight up lies.
What religion? He changes what religion he is to accommodate what their beliefs are. And when he goes to the Rowe family in Indiana, he's, "What are you?" He says, "I was raised Baptist." And First Baptist, and Bobby, Ricky's dad, goes, "Well, that's good because we don't think a lot of Southern Baptists around here." And I kind of went, "Hang on a second. That seems like a really racist remark," and I looked it up, and sure enough, that Southern Baptist refers to Baptists in places like in Alabama and Mississippi in the South, where their parishioners are predominantly black and people of color, and it's like, wait a second, no, that you can't just throw that as like a throwaway line. It does nothing for the movie either.
It didn't. Unless they added nothing to it. They don't touch on it
ever again.
Further, they just want to establish like, hey, Bobby racist in this movie.
And I don't get it because it's not like even I can't even imagine where there would be a deleted scene where that would come up again. You know what I mean?
Because it's not like
because you see
his
movies,
son is has any racial bias towards.
But you see movies all the time where there's lines, and it's like, wait a second, that could have meant something in a deleted scene, but you don't really pay much attention. But this was just completely out of the blue and made no sense to the plot of the movie or anything else like that. It's like, wait, why are you throwing this in?
It only makes sense in the fact that I guess the director wanted the audience to know that, okay, Nick Nolte is willing to code switch or just switch up his personality to fit the individual. I think in that context, it makes sense.
Yeah, but even
this guy's racist. Okay, I gotta act like okay.
But even that, he doesn't act like it.
Not act like it, but he's okay with it. He's not gonna, because obviously he would be like, "What the hell? I have black athletes." Like, but
it's almost like as soon as he says the line, they cut to another scene, so there's not even a reaction.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room to breathe.
Which is why it makes even less sense to me. But all right, so then there's also some more of the notable actors in here. Is Ed O'Neill.
Oh yeah,
as the reporter playing Ed.
Which I love Ed O'Neill. I'll never talk bad about that man. He is
Polk High School, 3 touchdowns, 1 game.
Right, and he'll choke you out because he's a jiu-jitsu black belt. Anyways, yeah, in this movie he was just doing his job.
Oh, absolutely.
He was just doing his job.
No,
I think he just had a personal gripe with the Nick Nolte character because it seemed like all of his attention was focused on
his wrongdoings.
Yeah. But
attacking him, more or
Nick
less.
Nolte was actually one of the most cleanest, honest coaches when it seemed like that entire league was full of dirty coaches.
Well, it seems like...
So why are you putting so much energy trying to catch Nick Nolte, who, after years and years of not doing anything dirty, decided to do something dirty, and lo and behold, Ed O'Neill's character was watching the entire time. So it just seemed like he should have been focusing his energy on the whole league and other coaches instead of just Nick Nolte's character. But I like the character because he was just doing his job.
I mean, I agree, but what's weird to me is that, like I say, the movie it portrays that Nick Nolte has been coaching there for, say, 10, 15, 20, however long it's been. He's never had an issue, except there's one incident that was like 3 or 4 years prior that they keep referring to this point shaving incident. If you're a coach of whether it be a collegiate or a professional sports team, and there's only one incident that's even possible in a 15, 20 year span, you have a clean record that nobody could even question. My other issue with that is it seems like almost all of the reporters, whenever they show when he has a press conference, all of those reporters are there for every press conference. It almost seems like they're all beat writers that only cover that team. Because it doesn't make sense why, like, I mean, Ed O'Neill, it could for him, because he could just be working for a local paper and he's a sports columnist or whatever. But if you watch the press conference at the beginning, the press conference at the end, almost every reporter in there is the same. So are they just like only caring about this team? I don't understand why that is, and I know that a lot of teams have their own beat reporters who write for the school website or the professional team website, and that way they can still take the quotes that are said in interviews, but they can use them to put a positive spin, even if it's a negative situation, so that the team looks better. What doesn't make sense to me is this school hire 50 of those people, or are there 50 newspapers, or like where are all these reporters coming from? Because
there's a lot of reporters. So it's like they're not a professional team. Like
no,
I'm saying, if it was a professional team,
even professional team, you see press conferences.
Team.
There's like 10, 15 reporters. It's not a room of 50 people.
Yeah, there's way too many reporters. I have nothing to say about that other than I guess he just didn't. The director didn't do his research on that aspect of it. Maybe just wanted it to be more dramatic by having those many.
But I don't know. Just I'm not sure. 'Cause, I mean, this movie was written by Ron Shelton, he also did Tin Cup, Bull Durham. He's done a lot of high-profile sports movies, so I think he would know something about it. But that could just be my own bias and opinion. I like Ron Shelton. I like a lot of his movies, and
it's really one of the things. Movie World,
everything's
college
possible.
Games. There's that many reporters show up for a dynasty, huge college team.
And I will say, much like most sports movies, a lot of this is fictionalized because there is no Western University. They
right, like Western what?
They're just the Western Dolphins.
What?
But
we the whole West.
And it's because and I'm sure it's because the movie's about recruiting scandals. The NCAA, I'm sure, did not want their name on it. So if you notice, it says there the NCSA, which I'm guessing stands for National Collegiate Sports Association.
Which I think that was a detriment to the movie, man. I didn't really pay attention. I didn't really notice that, to be honest. But yeah, the fact that the NCAA didn't really want anything to do with this movie was it's a nitpick for me. Even though I just realized it now, like why it should have had that. That would have added even more believability to it.
I think that casts a negative light on the NCAA. It's the same
True.
reason. It's the same reason why
because that's what they were doing.
It's the same reason why when they made Any Given Sunday, they made everything.
I get it.
A different league because it's such a.
They don't want to see the truth.
It's such a negative outlook on that particular sport that the NFL, or in this case the NCAA, was like, no, we can't have our brand tainted, I guess, with this type of thing, and so it's an interesting thing. I mean, I know a lot of sports movies do that, and whether it be because they don't agree with the subject matter of the movie, or they just don't. The studio doesn't want to pay for licensing. I mean, it could be a little bit of everything, but
yeah.
No, I mean, overall, I loved this movie as a kid. I wouldn't say I loved it now as much. I still really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a solid movie. I would say it's good. It's pretty good.
I would recommend it to
great.
people. If I would recommend it as a good watch. It's not, like I say, it's not the greatest for the sport because there's not a ton, but the stuff you see is really good. But I like the drama and the storyline behind the stuff that's going on.
If you're a fan of either basketball or Shaq or Penny Hardaway or even Nick Nolte, I think you could recommend this movie to said people.
Yeah.
I liked this movie. I didn't absolutely love it. I didn't think it, blew my mind or anything. But that wasn't the intent of the movie. The intent of the movie was just to show you the underbelly of that world.
Yeah.
And I think it did its job.
I tell you when I was a kid, what blew my mind was all those, every time Shaq dunks, the screams.
Oh, dude, look. Special shout out to the ADR in this movie.
Whoever recorded
not only Shaq, but if you pay attention,
a lot of
every single person that goes up for like a dunk or even a layup, I have to bring up, not the first game that he lost during the beginning, was the second game.
I know exactly the part you're talking about.
Where they were getting dominated. Every single time they showed the opposing team dunking, or I think one guy literally just went for a basic layup.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
They added these screams,
guttural screams.
These guttural screams, like they're dunking with absolute force. And I think that the ADR should, be a cast member.
So before
he was putting in work.
Before we watched this movie for the podcast, I hadn't seen it in years, and when we discussed doing this movie, that was one of the first things that I remembered was just the dunking and the screams. Bro. And just
even a lot of the scenes of them just talking, you can tell
it was 100% ADR.
Like there was dialogue added in later,
and that happens a lot. I mean,
but it was super noticeable in this movie.
I know. I noticed it quite a bit, and again, that's stuff that when I watched this when I was younger, never would have even crossed my mind.
Not at all.
But now, and especially now that we're older, we know that this happens a lot. But I mean, you can nitpick that, but there's not really another way that they can go about doing it. Unfortunately, because once those scenes are all filmed and they wrap filming, it's like, what do? Go reset everything up and shoot for an 8-second part of a scene that you missed a line? No, you just add it in and you figure out where to put it. But I think there are better ways to do it. Yeah. And I will say that to me this movie does have a little bit of pacing and editing issues. There's some weird cuts, and it goes, it's not the,
I think the movie was paced okay from the beginning towards the middle, but once it was from the middle to the end, they rushed the hell out of that.
I find it very choppy.
Yeah. A scene would end, and then it would immediately cut to something completely different. Almost as if there should have been more context to the scene prior.
Yeah. I will say I kind of wish that they had given Nick Nolte a better motivational, fired up sports movie type speech. I mean, like you think of sport, like you think of Kurt Russell in Miracle or Al Pacino in Any Given Sunday.
But that is a movie.
That's a sports movie trope. Yes.
You know what I mean? That maybe the director was like, I'm not having that.
But I love them. I personally, I love those. Like, there have been times that I will just go on YouTube and I'll watch a compilation of like the best for like Matthew McConaughey's speech in We Are Marshall and all that stuff, and I don't know why.
Rocky speech
to his son outside the bar when the world knocks you down or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm like, oh shit, I'm good now. After I hear that.
No, but it's funny that the big speech they give him at the very beginning is I've never seen a coach berate a team when you guys don't deserve a locker room.
Is that the beginning of the movie?
That's how the movie starts.
Exactly. This motherfucker goes full Nick Nolte at the beginning of the movie. This motherfucker yells at him,
and then he's calm
leaves,
the rest of the movie.
Comebacks,
he does it 3
yells,
times.
Leaves, comebacks, yells, leaves, comes back, and it was calm. I was like...
He does it 3 times, and he's like, you guys are... You don't deserve a locker room. You don't deserve uniforms. You should be out there playing in your jock straps. And then he storms out. And then he comes back and he does it again. And then he finally, at the end of it, he just sits down and he's like, I'm so sick of basketball, guys. I'm like, what is going on?
Motherfucker went through a roller coaster of emotions within a minute.
But in that opening, like 3-4 minutes, it shows you exactly the type of coach and person that he is, that he cares so much about these players and this team and this university, but at the same time, he's sick and tired of losing and the way that they've been playing, and it's almost like you see an inner battle of himself of, I want these guys to do well, but I'm trying to get the best out of them, and I don't know how.
You're seeing a coach who's used to losing for the very first time.
Exactly.
And not willing to accept it.
Yeah. But so that would be I think that pretty much wraps it up. I think that'll be...
If I give it a rating, honestly, now out of 10, I'd probably give it 7.5.
Okay. So that's a little bit high. I think 7 on IMDb.
I could see why people gave it at least the IMDb.
So IMDb is 6.3.
I can understand that. That is I agree with that. I liked it a little bit more only because I'm a 90s kid. I grew up with Shaq. I really liked Penny Hardaway. So my bias definitely boosted the score a little bit.
See, and I'm gonna piggyback right off of you on that one. I would give this movie a 7 myself, and again, a lot of that is the Shaq and Penny factor, because I was a big Orlando Magic fan as a kid because of those two.
Yeah, and Nick Nolte's performance deserves.
I mean,
my rating
don't get me
too.
wrong.
He's
If
a
you would
beast,
have
man.
if you would have asked me this when I was 13 when I watched this movie, I would have been like 10 out of 10 all day. Great movie. This is fantastic.
Dunks, basketball.
That's exactly what it
Screaming.
was. These are great dunks. They're this. They're that.
There's a lot of dunks.
There's
A lot of dunks in this movie.
It was like an hour. It was like an hour and a half compilation of Shaq just posterizing dudes.
Yeah, pretty much. Spin around and dunk this goddamn basketball.
And just
face.
hang off the rim. I don't know how that rim in Algiers and that thing didn't just rip right off the backboard.
He probably had to have at least ran through one.
Also,
or
I've
two
never
before.
seen a rim that thick than in that scene. I'm like, that looks like a goddamn bike tire.
Those motherfucking set designers knew Shaq was coming. Like, we gotta fortify this.
We got a 7 foot tall, 300-pound guy. We need to do
Who's
some
used to breaking, shattering.
shattering the backboards.
Yeah, that's what he was known for back then.
Yep.
Shattering it. Imagine having that much power that with ease you could shatter a. God damn, man.
Mm-hmm.
This is turning into a Shaq fucking love fest.
Well, I think everybody loves Shaq, but no, like I said, I'd give this movie a 7 out of 10, and I think it's really good. It could have been better because it is definitely not a perfect movie. There are things here and there that could be changed, could be altered, could be fixed, but ultimately, I think that it is still a good movie. It's a fun watch. And it's not too deep of a movie, but at the same time, it's not one of those like sports movie comedies where you can just have it on in the background. You do want to pay attention to it, but it's not something that you're going to be engrossed in and like I can't do anything else while this is on. But I would definitely recommend this movie to people, and like you said, if you're a basketball fan,
or even
and
if you coach basketball, I think you have a personal connection with this movie.
Yes,
and you would like it
yeah,
way more than the average person.
yeah.
But yeah, that's Blue Chips.
Yeah, so I will say, like I do every week, sorry, not every week, but every episode we record, if you guys out there would like to get a hold of us, you can email us at geekedoutpod@gmail.com, or also you can hit us up on Twitter, or X, whatever you would like to. I don't know what the hell's going on with Twitter nowadays. Well, we have a Twitter account. It's @geeked_podcast. Just let us know if you guys have any suggestions of things you want to hear about, or movies, or shows, topics you'd like us to discuss. Just let us know, and we'll see if we can fit it into our schedule. And until next time, this is Geeked Out. Take care. Thanks for listening.
Bye.